start with all of this, but as long as we're talking about mics, let's nerd out to start, man. I mean, how, for you, this album, which I love, by the way, I heard the whole thing, listened a few times through. It's really fantastic, man. How is this different, the process of making it for you? If we're talking about, you actually sitting down in the studio, writing a song, like how have you changed as a producer since the last time around?
And are we recording now? Is this the podcast?
Sure. Yeah, we've started recording. We started recording when you came on. I edit this later, so we can kind of drop in whenever we want. Yeah.
I mean, I guess off the cuff, I don't know if I'm so happy with this album that I've never finished a project and been like, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm always like, I wish I could have gone back and done this. But COVID kind of gave me that time. I don't know if I'll make an album this good again.
I mean, honestly, that's kind of awesome, though. That's like a good thing to know, because I think there's so much of the rat race of it where the second you're done with something, you're just trying to top it and you're kind of over it already, realizing that you've done something good and being able to say like, yeah, this is the peak of my current abilities. I mean, that's kind of amazing. That's like almost a gift to be able to realize that.
I had like the most fulfilling year of my life, probably 2019, where, I got everything to a point in my career and I was like, okay, I can enjoy myself now. I've hit all the benchmarks I needed to get to. I've earned myself time off because, it was manic there for like 6 or 7 years. I didn't even have a home address. I didn't rent anywhere. I just moved and moved and moved and moved. And
did you like living like that at the time?
I did. I still like living like that. If I was to go back to it, precisely, it's a little less chaotic now. But I enjoy it, man. It's exciting and fulfilling but you do have to take breaks from it. And not because it's unbearable to keep doing it. It's because there's like another side to the coin. Like that is the exploration of experience. And then you need to come into capturing that experience and refining that experience if you're going to be converting it into music and art.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's another part of it too, right? Where you want to go out and like do all the things, have all the experiences, like live life to the fullest, all that kind of thing. But then I don't know, I think as I get older, I don't know if you're this way too. I find it's more and more about balance, where before I would kind of think, it's about like trying to experience everything. And these days I'm kind of more like, well, it's trying to do that for a while. Then it's about trying to sort of be quiet and calm for a while and sort of sit with yourself. And it's, I don't know, man, where are you at with it now? Because obviously I'm sure COVID slowed everything down for you like it did for everybody.
Yeah, I think how you put that falls in line greatly with something I realized as well, is a life like that is fantastic for ideas, but it's not great for finishing. So I had just have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of ideas on my computer that I didn't have the time to really refine and consider properly to bring them to fruition. And COVID, like during COVID, the first year I spent actually living at Daniel Johns' house, familiar with him from that band Silverchair, and also all his solo work. He actually had that huge podcast as well that they put out sort of explaining his whole life, which was insane. But I lived with him for the first 9 months, him and a bunch of friends. It was like this crazy art commune where we were just like, we don't really know what's going to happen to the world, so let's write about it, and just like hang out and keep each other's spirits up. And it was nice. It was like a pretty major regional town in Australia. So, it wasn't so congested that they locked everything down really at all. And cafes and stuff were still open. So, it was kind of life like normal if you just weren't used to leaving that town,
Sure.
And it was.
So, if you say like commune, like what are we really talking about? Like, is this like a lot of people all in a house together?
Yeah, we started with 12. And then after a few months, it sort of whittled down to 4 because everyone was like, oh, I got to get back to my life and sort out, or I'm renting at this house, another city, and the rules are changing. I got to go back, or, got to see my family, and they get stuck where they were. And just a bit like that in Australia.
Yeah.
It was like, you sort of pick your spot, and then you're like, okay, this is my spot. I'm probably going to have to be here for a while. But yeah, that was a pretty insane experience for me. Like, Dan is just insanely prolific, talented writer, creator, visionary. And to get so much time together, because we were very good friends before this, and we'd written some amazing music that I loved so much before this. But this was the first time we wrote without intention. It wasn't like, hey, Dan, I'm here for 3 days. We got to smash all this out. Like, let's have fun. But like, we've only got 3 days. It was, hey, we've got until the world comes back to order.
Right.
To do whatever the hell we
days. Want. Yeah.
And it just, I noticed, we talked about it a lot, this childlike mentality reemerged from us. And I think the child form of creation is the most pure and honest form of creation. They are literally just, I think, opening that channel to something else so much more so than us, because we're so conditioned. We have all these habits and we have all these, intentions that are commercial or economic or based on fear. I need to make a song that's bigger because otherwise I won't have enough money to eat, and I'm really worried about that. Just little things you don't even notice that are sort of sitting there in your psyche.
Oh yeah, we know too much, man. We know too much now.
Yes. But we were just like, hey, I just feel like this today. Let's make a sound about that, And for the most part, that entire 9 months, I don't think I used soft synths. I only used analog, and we just recorded with every instrument and synth around the house, vocals, guitars. I mean, Dan has like an insane collection of guitars because he's a pretty insane guitarist and fascinated with different tones and sounds and all the effects boards he has. He had like 20 different synths that he collected over his life, tape recorders, different compressors and harmonic saturators, and all this just hardware, Echo Boys, like the actual hardware, just all scattered around his house. But he doesn't use a laptop or a computer. He doesn't know how to use one.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so all this stuff's just sitting there in his house, and you need someone who can like bring a sound card and like plug it all in. And I just happened to be that guy for 9 months. And we made this whole project. There's a record on his album called Stand 'Em Up that we did together. It's actually like a punk rock record, and we made a whole album like that, just capturing our experience through COVID, what we saw on the television, how we all felt in that house, people dealing with different issues and different things about their lives. It was a pretty special experience.
While you were there, once you started working and these songs were kind of coming out, was there an intention for it? Like, at a certain point, did you know, like, okay, we're writing this song for your album, or maybe this is the start of a project for me? Or was it really just kind of this free for all, and then you just look back and kind of collect it?
It was a free for all for sure. And it was, both of us kind of immediately knew, oh, this is separate from like, our quintessential solo work. This is like, it's a whole own thing. And it was really exciting to sort of give people a taste of that on Dan's album, because he was having such a giant moment and was really excited about the project when he was doing that big podcast that he did and so forth. So we were like, let's give people a tease of what we've got to come on that. And a beautiful thing about this time was it was such a hyper creative, hyper hands-on and DIY time for me, that when I came back to my album at the very end of 2020, I saw all those rough demos that I'd made traveling around the world. I saw them differently, and I saw the flaws and the holes, and I saw where they needed to be filled and where they needed to be reconsidered, how I would change the drums, the rhythms, some synth tones that needed to be different. I think it was just this album for me, I got so much more movement in it, and it really translates into having so much more frenetic energy and, I guess, playability, festival kind of music to actually dance to. I think the last one was a lot more cinematic and somber, which, had a lot of negative space rather than amplitude and excitement.
Yeah, well, I think you've always been really good at tension and release in your music in general. The new one for me, yeah, there's kind of this fun energy to it. There's this there's a nostalgia to it. Not that you're making music that sounds like older music, but I feel like, I don't know if this is intentional. This is what I got from it, like a very nostalgic, just kind of energy throughout the whole thing. It's like a little film on everything, a little grit, a little dirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think definitely, there's periods in your career where you run away from things that you were, and you run away from scenes that you were in, not feeling in line with it anymore. And I definitely let a lot of that go. I was like, no, I'm just going to make what's inside of me, and I'm going to let the song be what it wants to be, and not think about, oh, that's not cool anymore. Or I don't know if I want to align with that, or et cetera, or I was just no, this is the song. It's fucking cool. This is what it wants to be. I'm taking it there. Let's work out how to do that. And there was a lot of studying for me, really. If you can imagine, when you're on tour crazy like that all around the world, often I was running on pretty low data, right?
Yeah.
Or I was on a plane and they didn't have Wi-Fi. Like, that was a lot of my day, or out of reception at a regional festival. And then when I get to reception, it's usually like dealing with important emails, calls, like talking to creatives who are helping me build stuff, and making sure it's all coming together in time for this big event that we've got, building the show for this and that, and all these kinds of things. What was hard to find time for was to just sit on the internet and do research on simple things like sound design. Like, I really like this genre that I'm seeing coming up, but how do you make that? And I didn't have the time to sit and watch a 20-minute tutorial on like a specific couple of sounds or reasons, or the way they filter the drums, or the types of rhythms and filter LFOs that they might use on the synthesis to get certain patterns and things. So I finally had time to do that. I finally had time to just sit on the internet and kind of enjoy it. I think a lot of it was like I was a creator for the internet rather than a user and observer of the internet.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because I think this is a common myth that people outside of what we do can buy into, is that once somebody achieves a certain status, or your name is big or all that, there's this idea that you already know everything, and that there's these genius artists that are just poofed into the world that don't require any maintenance, when the reality is that all of us have to keep learning and keep evolving, and watch a fucking YouTube tutorial or whatever it is. Like, of course we all have to do that to keep, evolving our craft in some way. But I feel like there's like a myth. It's like, you're not supposed to tell anyone that you did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's total bullshit.
Yeah.
I remember one of my first experiences, right? So the day I met Skrillex, and I think the next day I met Flux Pavilion and a bunch of other people, like, this is like way back, like 2014. We all ended up doing this back-to-back after this festival field day. And I was just playing all these songs that I loved, that I thought were so cool and interesting, from all walks of different genres. And everyone kept coming up to me like, yo, what is this song? What is this song? What is this song? And I was like, how do you not know this? You're Flux Pavilion, or you're Skrillex. Like, how do you not know? And I realized once I started touring like they do, and my life started being like theirs, I was like, oh yeah, you just like, you're on the move, go, 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 go. Like, you don't sit in the culture. You are part of the culture. You're an arm of the culture, but you're not an observer of the culture, and you're not absorbing the culture as much.
Yeah.
You're not sitting on that Reddit forum waiting for like a refresh of some interesting track to pop through, or your homie who's a promoter in this small venue over in blah, 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 sending you 5 new things he found that week that are super hype because you're just chit-chatting and like not too busy to do so.
Yeah.
Like you just get segregated from reality. And you get segregated from a lot of the really cool communities that like birth the ideas in their origination. So yeah, a lot of it was like, you do have to keep up. You get to hear, and then, someone sees what you're doing and has the time to go and do it better. And then you have to notice they're doing that, and then go and observe what they're doing and how they're evolving. That's what music is. It's like everybody challenging each other and evolving each other's ideas collaboratively. I think that's one of the most insane and beautiful things that has happened with the internet and things like SoundCloud, was this immediate evolution of ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, yeah, it almost became a meme or like a cliche of itself after a while, where someone would drop a big track and you knew within 2 hours there would be 100 remixes of that track on SoundCloud. And it was the best. It was so fun, Yeah. Like, I think about what you were saying earlier about when you were writing with Daniel Johns and kind of trying to take it back to like a childlike place. I think we're talking about the same thing here too, because, I remember sitting, waiting to refresh SoundCloud or the Reddit forum or message boards, even before that, blogs, whatever it was. And, the second you would get that new post and you could grab the MP3, like, it was the most exciting thing at the time, right? Because you don't know what else is out there. So at the time, this is like the biggest deal in the world. And I don't know, I feel like it takes more for me to get excited about something now. And I don't know if that's a good thing.
No, I think that's fair, because I even notice, like, I hear some young producers and I'm like, okay, you're on a great track, but you've got so much to work out, like we all do, like, so I think that's fair. And some people just work it out faster than others. Some people have the time to work it out faster than others. And I think for the most people just work out better systems quicker, because it really is a matter of, if you find a great system to absorb and learn faster, you will excel quicker.
Well, can we talk about, because last time we talked about a lot of your come up, but I don't think we really spent much time talking about how you actually learned to make music. Like, yes. what did very early Chris making music on a computer look like?
So first program I ever got was Fruity Loops, and I played around with that a bunch, but I was a drummer. So I really just made drums.
Right.
And that was it. I just made all these like kind of tribal percussive like crescendos.
Did you have anyone showing you what to do? Did you have any kind of mentor?
I was just working it out at that point. And then I got Ableton. And then with Ableton, I started playing around with bootlegs, like mashups and things. Because I think in Fruity Loops, I didn't even work out how to like drag in a song. Like, I was just like playing around with drum sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
And then with Ableton, I started making, because I was DJing before I was producing. And I was very quickly sort of leveling up in the DJ scene in Australia. I had a very good collection of music and followed a lot of blogs, and would always have like some pretty ripping tracks that not a lot of people had on the scene. And then I realized, I can I DJ like using 4Decks. So I'd be doing mashups and sort of edits and crescendos live with like the effects and everything. And I was like, okay, cool. I could do so much more of this and do more exciting combinations if I could pre-make these edits and these mashups, and then mash those mashups with other edits and mashups. And eventually I was building these sets where I'd turn like 8 songs into one song that just kept going and going and going. And at that time, I'd already understood sort of the human behavior with dancing and with club music and I think it was all about the tension and release, like you mentioned before. It was all about how long can you hold them in tension before you need to give them a release? And what if that release is actually another build? Right. And then how long will it be until they're just like fed up with it? Like how long can you string them along at like 110% before you got to give them a release? And I started working things out like, I can like hold them here with this crescendo and then go to this fake out drop and then actually give them something. And then while that's going, I can like hit the crossfader and slide to like I don't know, some bingo player's riff and then cut back and, like just
Yeah.
really working out the metric and psychology of how people behave to music in clubs. And then I took that into production, and I had like one session with Hayden James, who was the only person I knew at the time that produced. And he like showed me a bunch of things, and I was like, okay, cool. I got to go and do this stuff. And then the first bootleg I ever made, Hayden helped me finish it because I was very green. Like I think I was still like 19 or something. First bootleg I ever made, I got my friends who knew me from DJing around the place. I think it was Deckhead and Stony Roads. They posted the song and it went to number one Hypem.
Right.
And, I don't know how everyone is familiar on here, but Hypem was like, I guess like the Billboard of blog music.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. I mean, getting to number one on Hypem in a certain era was like more important than anything.
Yeah.
People like made careers off of that. Yeah.
So I did that first time and I was like, okay, I think I get this. I just need to study the craft more. And instead of sampling, a little chord stab or like a drum loop or a drop, I need to learn how to build that myself. And then I went on a path of that for, until now.
Right.
Like for real.
Until yesterday,
I still sit down sometimes and I'm like, because I don't have a template. I like to just sit and just like let it out,
Yeah.
I honestly sit down sometimes and like, wait, how do I make a drop again? Like I just like for real, I get that.
No, dude, I know exactly. I do the exact same thing. There's some certain days, or sometimes you'll go back and listen to something you made and you're like, who made this? Like, that kind of thing. Like, I feel like half the time when I sit down in front of a blank Ableton session, I'm convinced that I have forgotten how to make music half of the time. You know what I mean? It always somehow works out, but I don't know. It's like a weird psychology thing where I have to convince myself I don't know what I'm doing and then somehow muddle my way through, and like that's how you get the results. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
I think sort of on this note too, I spent so much time in the last probably half decade writing songs rather than making just festival music and club music. And then this album is the first time I'm coming back around and like, I actually love DJing. I love clubs. And I got a bit separated from them for a while there just because of the scope of the size of the project. But then after COVID, I was like, man, I just want to be a sweaty room with 200 people just ripping some IDs, like songs I've literally never even played to anyone, and just feel that energy in there, So this album has that. This has that. I think that's the nostalgia about it. It has that raw detail that I think the start of this project was all about and what put it on the map.
Yeah, I love that, man. Another thing, as long as we're talking about that, another thing I noticed on the album, I was trying to figure out, because there's a bunch of different like styles, tempos, that kind of thing. But I felt like it was very cohesive throughout, and I was trying to figure out why I felt that way. And you tell me if I'm on the mark or not, but I wanted to talk about the way you use distortion in general.
Okay.
Because to me, that tied a lot of the songs together. There was a certain, I don't know if it's the exact same distortion or like a pedal or something, but it was like everything, like all the shit was just like slightly crunchy in a way that kind of, I felt like carried over song to song, no matter what else was going on, whether it was a rap song or a club song or tempo wise. Like there was just that little bit of grit, that little bit of edge.
Nice.
And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I liked it.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think that was the tone that I wanted to go for. And I think some songs naturally just had it, and then some were pushed to get to there. And there's definitely a discussion, because I mixed this and mastered this with Alex Subhuman, if you're familiar with Alex.
I know the name, but I don't really know much.
Yeah, I was actually a fan of his old production project he used to do called Trump Disco.
Oh, okay.
And then
I do know that. Yeah.
If you remember that from back in the blog days. like some really phenomenal work. And then he went more into becoming a mix engineer. He still does Subhuman as well as like his production project. But some of that might be coming from him as well because of the mastering chain that he puts on. And there was definitely quite a few discussions we had about, hey, some of these songs are like, we want them to be ridiculously massive and abrasive. And then some of these songs we want to be quite delicate and fragile. So we sort of did a similar treatment in processing sense, but I think we just dialed back the compression on some of them so that they weren't choking up the mix intentionally,
right?
As you sort of choose to do for certain, extreme club and festival records.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, I guess, for anyone listening about what we're talking about. Is we're talking about actual distortion. We're not talking about the insane crunched limiting that you hear on a lot of, EDM songs right now where everything's just sandwiched. But yeah, distortion to me is like, that's just another tool in the tool belt. Like distortion can be such a cool dynamic tool.
There was definitely a lot of distortion on the, like tasteful distortion and clipping on the drums. I think that was super important for this one. There's even Mercy, like, a lot of the time I was sending the songs to Alex to mix, like, hey dude, yeah, we got to turn it in, let's get it mixed. And then he mixed it, he sent it back and he's like, I'm really sorry, man, I'm going to take the whole song back off of you and change a bunch of stuff. Send it back. I did that like way too many times, which is really, really annoying, but he is so sweet and was so on board with the vision of it that he was like, okay with that.
Right.
And, for the most part, I'd be like, hey, go jam on this one. We were actually sharing the session at the later stages. So like I could load what he'd done in the mix and then make changes instead of me having to like verbally communicate the changes, which was great. I don't know if I could work with someone that wasn't doing that because like we didn't do any like stem committing. It was like, no, it's all there and open. You can take this EQ off and just totally change the way that low mid is fluctuating, and like there was a non-committal process.
I think that's probably better. And
the other thing you might be picking up on is this is the first album that I used a lot of analog. I used a lot of analog, and then I would process it in a more modern way with certain soft pinch, with certain plugins, and that definitely got a tone I don't think I could have got, and I think it's very hard to get without. The analog is just so raw and intriguing and has all these anomalies within it that it's very hard to emulate that without it. And it also has this life to it when you put distortion on it, whereas I think sometimes when you distort soft synths, they just sound like distorted digital bits.
And it's at least like a
plastic and grubby, and they don't have this like rich tonality to them.
It's like a more familiar sound. I think when you do the digital distortion on a digital synth, it's kind of, even for non-producers, I think we've just heard it enough in dance music that it like kind of just gets slotted into like a familiar category in your brain.
Yeah.
The analog thing is interesting, man. It made me think, this is another question I wanted to ask you, is this has been true throughout your whole career, I think, but especially this album, it's extremely melodic and extremely evocative, and very lush in many parts. Where does that come from? How do you know how to do that? Because if you have a drummer's background and, not like like you didn't grow up playing piano, that kind of thing, right? Is that just something you evolved over time? Because I think a lot of the just musical choices you make on the album are very interesting, and like the chord progressions, all that, it's like kind of high level stuff. Does it just come to you? Is that something you studied? Where does that come from?
That's me literally blocking my own brain and just opening a channel, because I don't know that stuff.
Right.
And I've talked to Morgan from Slumberjack about this a bunch. He's a very good friend, and I was living over there in Perth for a while, and we hung out a lot. And like, he is an insane classically trained pianist.
He's
like
very good, yeah.
Competitive pianist. And he'll play something, and then I'll play something, And he's like, oh, you did that and that and that. And I'm like, man, I have no idea. It just like felt good, like I'm like quite rogue, which is it's a blessing and a curse. Like I think sometimes it creates such great and exciting ideas, but also means sometimes I don't know how to get from A to B. Like there might just be a nice chord that can take me from here to there, and I just don't really know, and it takes me a bit longer to work it out. But I do like the style. It's exciting for me because I just do stuff. Like sometimes I really just get into the flow, and then I'm tracking. Like that's another thing with this album. I did a lot of performing. I performed most of it. I didn't program it. Right. It wasn't like with little MIDI dots in my mouse. It was like, no, I'm going to play this thing on my MS-20, and if I get a cool solo, that's it. I love it. Freeze it in, or like performing even on a MIDI keyboard and like following the pitch wheel and whatever it may be. And it was a lot less like laptop kid sort of style, and a lot more flowing and building and crescendoing.
So when you say, just to nerd out on these ideas a little bit, when you say, that's me opening a channel, is that practice something you work on, like being able to just be open and let things flow in the studio? Like, what does that really mean for you?
I think I did a lot of work on that over the years to stay sane. Like it was sort of a byproduct of working out how to stay sane with the way my life had developed.
What do you mean?
So then I was sort of like, oh, now this just happens a lot more frequently. Like I always had it in me, because I remember in the very early days of Watson, like I'm talking like 2010, 2012 sort of days, I would come up with ideas. I'm like, I don't even know how I made this. This is insane. Like even the start of Jaguar was like I made that one. And I was like, holy shit, this is like one of the best things I've ever made. Like, this is so cool. I don't know what this is, but like it's wild and interesting. And there's all these great little hooks and stuff and some really nice chords. And, but like, I didn't know how to control it, and I didn't know how to bring it forth. And that's something I had to really learn.
Well, is it a spiritual thing? Like, do you think about it in like metaphysical terms, or is it more of the kind of mechanical, just like put in the hours, show up enough, and you get better at it kind of thing?
It's definitely a combination. You have to have your abilities at a point where you're in that flow state and you're not interrupting it to work something out. So it is 100% a combination. Like this is in me, like this is in you, like this is in everyone.
Yeah.
And, every now and again, like anybody can see it and find it and do it. But it's a matter of the study of your craft as well, to allow yourself to stay there and not have to like pull your mind out of it and go and work something out that's much more logical and practical.
Mm. Are you, this is a random question, I don't even know really what it means exactly, but are you a spiritual person in general? Do you consider yourself a spiritual person? Do you think about those concepts in your life?
I would say I thought it was all woohoo, whatever, back when I was younger. And then I just had so many experiences where I was like, oh no, this is 100% real. Like this is 100%. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on that we don't understand. And I think my life is proof of that, because I was just a kid from a beach town who left high school, hated uni, worked a 9 to 5, and then one day decided, no, I think I'm going to do music, and then went and did what I did. Like that makes no sense at all. Like absolutely no sense to me. And even that, this music that I make is even in me. Like, where is that? Like nobody told me that. Like I don't even know half of the theory. Like I don't know it. Right. So where is it coming from?
Yeah.
And there's no other answer.
That's fascinating, man. Yeah. Do you have you don't have to have an answer for this, and I'm not trying to like define you in any way, but do you have any ideas of where it comes from or what it is?
It could be too many things to really narrow it down. I mean, I've had experiences like I went big wave surfing in 2019. That was a big part of this album. That was like, it changed the way my brain functioned forever.
Can you, just for people who don't know, can you explain the difference between big wave surfing and regular surfing?
So regular surfing is like you just go to your local beach and whatever, you have some fun, and maybe it's a little dangerous, maybe it's not. Big wave surfing is like, sort of 20-foot American plus, where there's a very real consequence of death, injury, broken limbs, spinal injuries, whatever it may be, and drowning. It's just a whole different ballpark. And just facing that, when I was a kid that was scared of waves that were like shorter than me, like to go out there and do that. And when I did it, I had this out of body experience. I had this whole conversation with like Mother Earth. We had this like kind of negotiation.
Interesting.
Where like I literally was out there and I had this voice in my head, and she was like, "Are you going to respect me?" And I was like, "Yes." "Are you going to respect me?" And then she was like, "Yes." And then I was like, "Okay." And then when I just let everything go, and I felt like I wasn't even riding those waves. I was just being like guided through them, guided to safety, guided to the fun of the experience. I remember I even look at the footage. I came in and my buddy Ebbs is filming it, and he kind of like was just asking me questions, but it's sort of like an interview, but I didn't even see it as an interview. And I like the tone of my voice is different.
Oh, wow.
My mannerisms are different. My language is different. And it was like I entered that childlike state. I entered that pure innocence, like just being completely free and open and letting go of everything that in reality that had sort of encroached itself onto me, and just went back to that true form of me. I was like, this is real me. This is like real young, innocent me, like just reaching back to that point and being completely connected. Like, I am part of water right now. I am part of this earth. I am part of this experience.
Man, that's so interesting. There's so much in there, because that sounds like being a kid. That sounds like certain drug experiences, which
yes,
that too. Like there's definitely been, to bring it back to music too. I mean, yeah, there's been shows I've played sometimes that feel like an out of body experience that, yeah, I look back at the footage and like don't remember how, it's like, it's the best shows, but you don't remember them because you were just kind of experiencing it, that kind of thing.
There was that experience. And then I think another experience that a lot of people could relate to is I went to this meditation retreat, back when I was like not really into that so much. I was sort of pressured to go by someone, but I was like, all right, I'll come to this thing.
Yeah.
And then we did this meditation thing for like an hour where you slow down your breathing. And then, we went through it. And then the instructor at the end pulled me aside. I was like, hey, did you know you got your breathing like incredibly slow? And I was like, oh yeah, I was really trying to like listen to what you were saying and follow it. And she's like, yeah, your singular in and out cycle was down to about a minute and a half. So I was only breathing in and out once every minute and a half. And she was like, you should really like work more at this. And I was like, okay, cool. And then this thing went for a week. And then in the last session, I was, in this other meditation, and I was just sitting there with my eyes open, and I was just looking at this wall, and this wall was like these wooden logs, like building up a cabin. And I was looking at this wall, and then something was like, okay, I'm seeing wood, but what is this wood made of? What creates wood? And then I started to see like what was behind the wood, like what created the perception of wood in our reality. Like it was almost like the spirit of wood. Right.
Yeah.
So then I like went through that wall. I looked through that wall and saw what was creating the perception of that wall. Because like I'm not touching it, I'm not up against it, I'm just looking at it. So like it is a perception. It's like, okay, I think this is over there. I'm not actually sure. I could walk over to it. It could be a piece of cardboard or like, whatever. But like,
sure, yeah.
What is creating the perception of this? So I saw like this
everybody else is having like a slightly different experience of that same wood, right?
Yeah. And so then I saw like what creates perception of that. And then I also asked, okay, now it was like this tribally kind of figure that like sort of morphed and moved. And I was like, okay, so what creates you? And then this point was getting very difficult. It was like almost hard to see it was like a bit fuzzy and blurry. Like I was battling with the essence of whatever this thing is to like see through what it wanted me to see. So I didn't get a very clear perception of this third phase.
Right.
And then I'm in there like fighting, like light coming at me, like whatever, like blurry vision. And I'm like, okay, but what creates you? And like push through to this other side. And suddenly I was like out in the open, free form in this open space, like kind of in space. There were stars and stuff, but like I was like, I was no longer in a body. I was just out. I like escaped this wood in our reality. What creates that? And then what creates that? And then I'm outside everything.
Man.
And this is like totally sober. This was just like a little bit of practice and training from these like quite good instructors, I guess, of this thing I was on for a week. And then only a few months later, for the first time ever in my life, probably like 25 or something, I took mushrooms. I'd never had mushrooms up until that point in my life.
Right.
And I had mushrooms and I was like, holy shit, I'm seeing the spirit of wood and the spirit of trees and the spirit, like it was exactly the same experience. And that was one where I was like, okay, all this meditation, spiritual stuff, definitely not bullshit, because like I had a completely sober experience, and also drugs, completely not bullshit. Like they are taking us to some other plane. They are getting rid of the expectation that our brain has put on our reality and showing us what is actually probably going on. Like I actually believe when you have a mushroom trip, you're just actually more aware of what is actually going on, and not just like in the 8-bit version of our reality, which is what our brain usually puts us in so that it can process everything properly. It doesn't have the brain function to process much more than 8-bit, and the world exists in 8K. You know, like I
Right.
think that is probably what something like mushrooms does.
Yeah, we're over here on our original Nintendo brands playing Duck Hunt.
Yes,
yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, it's, man, I love talking about this stuff because I have no idea what's happening, but I'm kind of in the same place as you where I'm like, something's happening. I got no fucking clue, but it's really fun to talk about. And then to bring it back, like it's always interesting to me when that kind of thinking intersects with real world thinking, right? Like you were saying earlier, you know, you were just this kid, you worked a 9-to-5 job, and then at a certain point you just go off and try this crazy thing. What was the 9-to-5 job actually before we get into
I was a fucking accountant. I traveled 3 hours a day in peak hour traffic to get from where we lived in this like beach area into the big city in Sydney. It was like, look, it wasn't horrible because I liked the way the work process was. I think doing that job taught me so much about how to be a good worker, and being a good worker is, I think, essential to like have a good career.
Yes.
And to level things up. And like, you know, like my brain sort of has two sides, and I had to unlearn so much of that 9-to-5 accounting brain to become a good artist. Like it was a literal switch. Like I remember I even did, you know, there's this internet test of like, what sort of brain do I have?
yeah.
And I remember when I was younger, I did one and I was like 80-20, like logic, or like sort of more functional. And then now I'm flipped. Now I'm like, I think I did another one like a few years ago and I was like 25% logic, 75% creative, like a total brain flip just by like, I remember there's a few light bulb moments where I just thought about things differently, and it just like clicked everything over. And I was like, oh, like working and sitting and grinding at something is not the answer. Sometimes the answer is go and have fun. Sometimes the answer is go and see a friend and have an experience. Sometimes the answer is stop making music and go and listen to music and absorb the music and absorb the ideas, or maybe go to a museum and be inspired by something that you see. Like, this design technology teacher I had when I was in high school, he always used to say, you can't design in a vacuum. And it was like the most annoying phrase he'd throw around, like as the answer to anything.
Right.
And he was so right. You know, like you need to absorb life and experience and art to create anything.
100%. And I think as we get further and further into this career, that gets harder and harder to do. You know, you were talking about the real big name artists who live in this rarefied air and are a bit detached or isolated from reality. I think in some ways that makes it harder to make good music at the end of the day, because, either you've got too many people around you just telling you that you're great all the time, or you're not able to just go have a regular human experience whenever you want, all that kind of thing. It's hard to stay connected, man, at a certain point.
Yeah, you get put in like this plastic bubble.
Yeah.
You get sheltered, you get protected, you get isolated. It's not as bad for me. I don't know what it is I did different to a lot of my peers, but like, I feel like people that like my project are really nice. and they're quite respectful and friendly. I don't have a lot of people that follow what I do that I meet and they're like a bit psycho. They're all like, I don't know, they're all like nice and kind and often gentle, or like maybe they're a little wasted, but they're still like chill. They're not like, but I know a lot of people don't have that. And I'm so grateful for that, because it means I can still live my life. And like, dude, I literally go to festivals and I just go in the crowd and like hang out with people, because I like doing that. I like listening to music and just being a part of what's going on. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people that can't do that. It's just gets a bit too hard.
Yeah, that's true. I remember once, I don't know why you made me think of this, but I was talking to Dave Nada. He was telling me a story of when he was on tour with Skrillex. And Skrillex, because they both have long hair, he would just be Skrillex's like fake out double. So like Sonny would want to like go somewhere and he'd be like, Dave, can you go walk that way? And then he'd just walk the other way, and it would apparently work every time.
Dave does, because I think Dave wears glasses as well. And he has this similar like...
Well, and they both had the like side shaved thing going on for a while. Yeah.
Wow.
But wait, so when you were an accountant, how much of an overlap with music was there? Were you an accountant who was DJing at night?
Yes, I had. I was DJing from about September when I was still 18. Was I 18 or 19? I think I was still 18. Oh, I started DJing the week I started accounting. They started simultaneously.
Oh,
that's
shit.
Right. I remember.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a big week.
Yeah, and I was studying accounting as well, so I did like the job 3 days a week. And then I went to, we had TAFE, which is like uni. I did that like 2 days a week. And then the TAFE was really close to my house. So it gave me extra time to make music. And then I would DJ and make music on the weekends. And that was like kind of the routine. I think even at one point, maybe I got like a day off, like a Friday or something. I could make music all day. And that's just all I would do.
Was making music and doing music professionally, was that always the dream? Or at a certain point, did you think like, no, like the accountant thing, this is like regular life and this is kind of just something I do for fun?
I just from the start knew I was onto something, and I was like, I can't let this go. Like I'm really onto something. But then I at 5 years in, like the accounting job kept me afloat, because I had 5 years there where I was like, it was me and two other friends DJing at Candy's apartment in Sydney, playing the back room. We got paid $50 for our set, and the taxi home was like $60, and that was split. We got paid $50 between three people. Like that was our income for the week.
Yeah.
And these were the best parties I think I've ever experienced. This was like, when Alison Hayden and all of us were all sort of the residents of the one club.
Yeah. Candy's is great,
and Golden Features and but yeah, like there was no money in it. It was just love. It was just art, like people making paintings for whatever they were doing at uni, and then bringing that in, hanging up on the walls. I remember I saved up and bought a laser, and then I just put it in the club and just shit like that. Like it was a battle to like. I got this one gig about when I was going to quit. And it was my local bar that I had always wanted to play. And they were offering me, I think, $400 on a Thursday night to play for like 5 or 6 hours.
Right.
And I had to play hip hop, and I was not into hip hop back then. And it was not like cool American hip hop, like underground hip hop. It was like the commercialist of commercial hip hop that Australia was aware of.
Yeah.
Still like early internet days when like, great cultural art wasn't really translating over to Australia in hip hop, I don't think.
Was it just on a delay, or did a lot of it just not even get there at a certain point?
Most kids only knew the one single off the album.
Yeah.
And they only knew the single that had a music video because that was all that got played over there.
Right.
So like that cuts out a lot of like, and I mean, a MTV video hits radio friendly video, like,
of course,
you know? Yeah. So when I got that, I was like, oh shit, I'm making like $400 a week. I got to do this gig. It's a tough gig, like it's a slog, but I could quit my job. And then like I got proposed a thing. Hey, you need to quit all the DJing and do this job seriously. Like, and I was like, no, this is the first moment in my life where my art can support me. Like I probably got $400 from that. And then like another $150, maybe a little more from like a couple of other random gigs I'd have that week. And I was like, okay, this is enough. I can just live off this. So I'm throwing it in. I'm going the wild road.
Man, was it scary at the time, or were you stoked about it?
It was the scariest thing I've ever done. Like the scariest. I still can't believe I did that. I was like quite a shy, timid kid. Like I was not brave. And that was the scariest thing I've ever done.
When do you think that changed? Because you don't, you're a very personable guy at this point. Do you still feel like the shy kid, or do you think that changed over time?
I think the more you become aware of yourself and at peace with yourself, the less you become shy, because shy is really putting too much onus on how do people perceive me.
Yeah. And
when you stop caring about how people perceive you and you're satisfied with yourself, it just kind of fades away.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. And I think it's one of those things too, especially talking about, caring how you're perceived and all that. It's kind of a constant process as we live too, right? Like it's something you sort of have to maintain over time.
Yeah. I think as well, like when you go and do something that you're passionate about, people gravitate towards that. And then you don't, like, I wouldn't say I'm extroverted like extroverts are,
Yeah.
They get attention by like commanding a room. I'm not really a commanding a room sort of person. I'm like, no, I command my craft and that talks for me. So I don't have to go and be that sort of a person to get anything to come to me. I just do what I do really well. Yeah. And then, the things that I would want in life will gravitate towards me instead. And you become everything orbits you suddenly, rather than you trying to work out how to sort of orbit all these different circles and pull them together.
Yeah, that's right. And even just you saying that, like that second way sounds so much more stressful too. It's like there's a certain relief. Like I think when you are a shy or an awkward person, there's a fear of being out there and having the attention, kind of being your authentic self. But then once you're able to kind of get there, it's just a fucking relief, right? Because you spend so much time running around trying to satisfy what you think people want of you, which is all just a made up thing in your head.
Yeah, I think that's one of the flaws with our development in our youth structurally with the systems that are in place is they don't teach you how to find what you are. They sort of put you all in the same box, which is school. They don't consider, okay, kids with autism, kids with ADD, kids with different kinds of conditions, which I honestly think are like, they're like enhancements for real. Like everyone I know in the music industry is like anyone who's great at creative is some form of some sort of, medically classified disorder.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, they're just excelling at certain points and then weak at others. Like that's it, and it's like schools need to be aware of that and like, okay, you have ADD pretty severely. So let's not make you sit in a chair for like 50 minutes at a time for 6 hours a day. Let's have you like being active. Let's have you on stage. Let's have you doing sport. Let's have you like getting your hands into something and like competing in things. And it's the wrong structure. And it makes kids so lost. And you like have them go through high school and then send them off to university to try and work out what they might want to be, going into like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you just need to like catch on a little earlier and give them the opportunity to discover themselves and like push them into all these different directions rather than, I think some schools maybe do this a lot better than others, but I just went to a public school and it was not a great school. It's like a whatever school. And I was just, as I got older, I was like, wow, that is such a poor system that teaches kids all the wrong things and doesn't teach them all the things that they actually need to have a great life.
Dude, I mean, you would not be surprised how many people I talk to on this podcast who have that story. Like, you know, the people I'm talking to on this podcast generally are people who have, you know, had some kind of success or doing something cool with music. And I don't know, probably more than 50% of them have that story of just like, yeah, school didn't really work for me in one way or another. And now I kind of ended up here. And, you know, it works for some people, but I would say probably more than 50% of the people I talk to have a similar thing. And then you think about like, you know, I'm talking to the ones who made it or figured it out, but it's probably a lot more who didn't. And, you know, I think that's the people that it's kind of the tragedy for, where it's just like, what is it for them? Like if there's one system and it doesn't work for them, like what do you do at the end of the day?
Yeah. Like a lot of the kids when I was younger that were really smart did terribly at school because they just didn't fit with the mold.
Right.
But I'm like I remember my mom made a comment about a friend of mine and she was like, oh, you know, he didn't really do that well with blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you don't realize he was one of the smartest out of all of us. He just didn't care for it. He just like hated the rules and the restraints. And like, I watched some of my friends grow up into lives that they hate. And it's really fucking sad because like in my eyes, they were bigger than me. They were stronger and smarter and had more opportunity than me. And it's so crazy to see how that winds up.
Man, yeah, you're right. Because that's the thing too. You can, even if it does connect with you and you can be good at it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you enjoy it. You know, it's like, it's very possible to be good at something you hate.
Yeah.
This does make me actually think about, there's another thing I wanted to ask you about the new album. Because, you know, you were talking about like, this is going from the 9-to-5 to the music thing and then evolving as an artist, et cetera, and how this is kind of like the truest reflection of what you want to get out there. No filters, no worrying about how it's perceived, all that kind of thing. So when I talked to you last, I was re-listening back to it. You were talking about kind of your intense routine of touring and writing music. You were talking about how you slept 4 hours a night and ate once a day and had this like pretty, you know, I think it's fair to say pretty extreme like routine that worked for you. Do you still have that? Has your routine changed? Like what was life like while you were writing this album outside of writing the album?
Okay, awesome. Funny points on this, right? I happened to listen to our old podcast completely by coincidence. I guess in the back of my mind, I knew we had this coming up, but there was no reason that I went back to it.
Oh,
but
amazing.
I listened to it the other day because my friend was on this really psycho kind of diet thing when he had like a goal he wanted to achieve with it. And I was like, oh, I used to do something like that. And then I was like, here, check this podcast. I talked about it here in pretty good detail. And then I was listening to it. And I was like, it was the strangest feeling. You know, you go and listen to a podcast and it changes how you think about things. Yeah. I went and listened to myself from another version of another part of my life talk about something and it changed how I thought again. I was like, I need to get back on that shit. Like not fully because I did stop doing it because it wasn't fun.
Didn't sound fun.
No, it wasn't fun. It was excruciating. But that was that was where I wanted my mind to be on that album. I wanted my mind to be really fighting and struggling because I was fighting and struggling in so many other areas. And that was a way to control it, was all those things that I was doing. And I couldn't have done that album if I didn't do that because I think I talked about it in great length of like, I needed every 20-minute block of my day to write and to create. Otherwise, I just wasn't going to get done because my life was manic. It was, you know, traveling around like I was. But like in 2020 when COVID hit, I was like, fuck it. I'm not washing and bleaching my hair. I'm going to eat Australian pie for breakfast. I'm going to like get fat if I want. I'm going to go to the beach. Like, I just was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I've spent 7 years always being on, always looking on, and I'm just going to fucking relax.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah, you deserve that, I think, man.
But then I was still a psycho. Like I was still like, everyone around me was like, yo, dude, you don't have to work that hard. And I'm like, this isn't work. This is fun.
like a psycho, just in terms of like your hours in the studio kind of thing.
Oh yeah. I'm a psycho. Like I'm a psycho. Like I love to push to the absolute limit. It's why I'm always like breaking limbs and like shit. Cause like I have this trade-off with my body where it's like, I give all the energy to my mind and to my ideas and not enough to my body. And then my body's like, I'm at breaking point, and then it actually breaks. And it's like, now you need to sit in a wheelchair for 6 weeks, you sucker. And I'm like, God damn it. I pushed it too hard. I went too far down the line.
What I think makes you different from maybe some other people is I think some other people, once you hit that limit and you break something or all that, then people will pull back and be like, well, I shouldn't do that again. Whereas I feel like you're like, when can I do that again?
Yeah, exactly. Like right now I have like a spinal injury and I haven't been able to go in the ocean for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months now.
Oh, shit.
But I'm like working on it so hard because I'm like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to go do that exact same thing again.
It almost reminds me, I don't know why I thought of this, but I think it's because I heard some of them on a podcast recently, but like some of the guys from Jackass were kind of that way, where it was like, to hear them talk about it, like it wasn't like an adrenaline junkie thing, but it was kind of that, just like, this is how we live our life. Like if we're not kind of pushing it and we're not living at this level of it most of the time, then like, what's the point kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely had a few phases where I wasn't working hard, and I haven't had that in like a decade, like flat out. I've never not like worked and excruciated myself doing so. And then a couple of times in the last 2 years, I really relaxed, and like even I would like not make a song for like 2 months, and I would be doing things like playing cards with my family or like playing video games or just, you know, casually going to the beach and stuff. And it was quite nice to have a break. And then every time I came back, I would write something like insanely good, like so much better than the usual. Because I think if you grind at it, you have like a 1 out of 10 hit ratio. It's like you make 10 bad things and 1 good thing.
Yeah.
But then when you build up that hunger, that creative thirst, then it comes out and it's magic. I think the only thing I lost from those phases was like the muscle memory of like, oh, I know exactly how to make that synth sound because I've just done it like, you know, every few days because I like that sound and I've made it from scratch, and I don't remember exactly where that folder is that has this and this and this, and I got to go and find it. That was the only thing, is like sort of the functional motor skills were gone a little bit, but the ideas were so strong.
Well, that's good, man. That's maybe a relief to know that like the next time you feel like you got to take a little time off, or just that you want to relax and chill for a while, that you can, and that it's still there, right? Like you can pick it back up anytime you want. Yeah,
it's definitely like that. It was a relief. You fucking got to work to get there. Like I feel like I had to work to have that joy.
Yeah, you got to work super hard to relax. Yeah.
You have to work, like I had to work for 10 years before I could relax once.
That's a crazy statement, man.
Yeah, but it works. Like, look.
Yeah. No, I mean, you don't seem, and I remember this from the last time we talked, and back when you were really on that like super extreme edge of living. Like you didn't seem stressed out then. You don't seem stressed out now. Do you get like, how do you deal with, do you get a lot of anxiety, stress, that kind of thing? How do you deal with that and still manage to kind of put in all those hours?
Anxiety is very rare for me. I don't usually get anxious. That was some work. I had to do that. Stress. I also didn't get stressed for a long time, but then the last year has been stressful. First time I've really felt stress. And it was because there were so many things out of my control that were going haywire that I was like, I can't even like rope this in. Like, it's just not to do with me, but it's affecting me so much. One of the biggest things for me is I had a bunch of people that were like on payroll that helped me with work, creative stuff, like whatever it is. And, you know, looked after them during COVID, and then they kind of dipped out after. And that really hurt. And also just immediately put me on the back foot when I'm like, okay, everyone's had a year off. Now it's time to go. And it's like, oh, my ship's falling apart.
Right.
You know, that was really hard for me. That was really challenging. And that was really stressful. It was like, these are the people I rely on to help me fulfill this project outside of the audio. And I've actually been doing something very complicated. I'm only just starting to talk about this, but I've been building a 3D animated film for about 3 years. And this album is the score of that film.
Ooh, I like that.
But because of all the complexities and setbacks and complications in the tech, the album is coming out before I'm finished the film.
Yeah, you're getting the score before you get the movie.
But that's also okay. That's also okay because I'm so happy and satisfied.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a sick idea.
With Anomaly, that I'm excited to sort of, I think a lot of people like, I don't know, people outside of actual musicians that release are aware of this, but traditionally it's all about building into an album. You build into an album to try and push and promote it so that it charts. And then, you know, it's like all these publications are like, oh, they charted, now we can talk about it. Whereas before we don't care about them. You know, it's this whole structure of like, oh, they got numbers on the board, so I guess we'll give them a minute of our following.
Right.
But I think that time is done. I don't think you can't, like, the traditional build into an album is really dead. It's dead because of TikTok, because of, I think, the attention span of the youth. I'm not saying that in a negative way. They're just like, people are making cooler shit that has nothing to do with rolling out an album.
Yeah.
And like everyone is a fucking creator now.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And we've never had that before, I don't think. Everyone is making hilarious little TikTok videos. Like, to make a good TikTok, you really got to think about it and understand it, right? And you've got to like cut the audio, you got to cut the video, you got to do all these things. You got to have the humorous pauses and whatever else is going on, or really catch a moment of something that's going on. So like, that's kind of a sphere that everyone's paying attention to now. You know,
it's true, man. So, I mean, how does that change you releasing this album?
I think, like, all in all, I'm just okay with whatever happens. I don't think music is about what happens when it's released. I think music is about what happens within the 10 years after you release it.
I think you're right. I mean, you know, all the music we talk about that we reference from like we spent some time this hour like talking about the blog era and that kind of stuff. And, you know, we could reference probably 10 artists, maybe 15 artists who are kind of like the touchstones of that era, the people who like left us with really meaningful stuff that we still think about. But, you know, there were hundreds of them. And it's really, it's the 10 to 15 that we still talk about. And then you think about, well, what was different about what they did? And yeah, maybe they weren't the biggest ones at the time either. You know what I mean? But it's the ones that kind of lasted. Yeah.
They were probably just the ones that were, I think the ones that stand the test of time are the ones that were really authentic. And they often didn't have the biggest song. They had the cool song that like got a bit of shine, but not the most.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that I hold in my heart. They're the ones, if someone talks about the era, they're the ones I'll mention.
Yeah. Because
they really defined it.
Yes. And one good thing about the current ecosystem, because everyone, myself included, loves to complain about the disposable attention span, TikTok, Instagram, Reel kind of culture that we're in. But one good thing about it is that it's finding and recycling old music faster than ever before. All these random songs pop up in somebody's TikTok and blow up overnight, or get used in some commercial, some song from 10 years ago, and all of a sudden it's on top of Billboard again. I think that shit is very cool. Like that's so exciting.
Look at Seabat right now. Like prime example.
Oh my God. Yeah. Hudson Mohawk.
Dude, Seabat was a jam. That was like an innovative record of the era that sparked like so many of us to even go down that path.
Yeah. And I mean, for him, somehow that happened right as he was releasing his new album too. I was like, man, that couldn't be more perfect. You couldn't plan that. It's amazing.
Yeah. I have no doubt nobody planned that. Like that was real.
No.
Just knowing Ross as well. Like,
yeah, no, there's no way.
Yeah.
Just because it's on the note of what we're talking about, I wanted to, I saw you tweeted this the other day, and I wanted to just like talk about it for 2 seconds because I thought it was really interesting, and I think it applies to what we were just talking about. So I'm just going to read it. This is what you tweeted, which was, as we lose the middle class in our economy, so too will we lose the middle tier in music. Predictable and commercial giants will dominate everything, with groundbreaking and interesting acts having moments but struggling to maintain a life-supporting career. And yeah, I don't know. What do you remember? What prompted you to write that?
Just, I guess I've had a lot of observations the last year in particular, traveling around the world, seeing what's happening and what isn't. Take the festival market. Most of the giants are fine. Like your Glastonbury's, your Coachella, they're great, selling out, awesome. A lot of the festivals in the middle that arguably do the coolest stuff are fucking struggling. Yes. And they're putting on killer lineups. They know their business. They know how to run great events, and the events are exceptional. They're just not getting the numbers there. And it just seems like there's not enough money going around for people to actually spend on enjoyable things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the costs of everything are going up, but the income is not, you know? And that means people are going to pick what they want, and often they're going to pick the big thing that everyone's going to, that's like a sure thing. Yeah. And
I think another part of it is there's been no club culture or festival culture for the last few years because there was no one allowed to do it. You've lost like an entire generation, or not an entire generation, like 3 years of 18-year-olds.
Yeah,
that just
like a crop
didn't
of university
go to a club.
Students. Yeah, man.
And probably maybe even missed and skipped that phase of their life, which is a very fun and incredibly exploratory phase. Like it's my favorite phase ever is like the I'm 17 sneaking into clubs phase. Like that was the best phase ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Music has never sounded better. I've never been more stoked on music than in that phase of my life.
And for the most part, like at that point in your youth, you're only accustomed to like pretty commercial things for the most part, like things that were just around you. Like you haven't really dived into like a deep-seated culture that's been going on for a decade before you even came to it and discovered like how cool things can be. Yeah, but I think about it with the environment as well. Like I drive through like some not so nice parts of LA, and I'm like, I see why they don't care about the environment here, because like the minimum wage in this country is so low that people are struggling just to like have a nice life. Like, why are you going to go and care about something so big and so ginormous when you're like barely able to just be happy and get by on your own? Like, you're just not going to care. And I think if things like that change, people would have the money to go and spend on things that make them happy. And I think a big part of that is music. And more it's just shifting away from the few are taking it all. And then everyone else is left at the bottom in these shitty little systems and rules.
Yeah, pretty much, man. I mean, if you even look at, we were having the social media conversation a minute ago, like the majority of all those platforms are owned by like a couple rich dudes at this point, Yeah. It's a wild thing. I don't know where it ends, but I'm glad you're I'm glad you're out here talking about it, man. I'm glad you're out here still making what you want to make, because I do think, I don't know if you get this sense, but I get the sense that a lot of artists really are a bit more insecure and a bit more like really trying to make sure what they make fits some kind of target or metric. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's just we've gone through a great reset, and people have built their lives around how things worked, and then suddenly they don't work, and it's like rattling, man. Like I've felt like worried about certain things, and things are going so great for me. You know, I can't imagine some friends where they're not like quite clicking through, or they haven't worked out TikTok, or they, you know, like that must fucking hurt and be very hard. And then a life of art is very, very scary at times, because it is, you get the highs, but you definitely get the lows, man. It is not a secure path. You have to adapt. You have to change. You have to shift. You have to pay so much attention to what's happening. You're literally making money off your ideas that you bring to life. And suddenly, if those ideas don't have value anymore, you're just like, oh shit, like this is everything. And not only like this is everything that I do to support myself, this is everything that I believe in, but it's not working.
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Because not only if all of a sudden your ideas don't have value, or someone determines your ideas don't have value, then it's like, not only are you worried about money, but then it's also like, well, wait, do I have value as a person? Because it's, we all get so intertwined with like ourselves and our work, at a certain point, it's hard to separate yourself as much as we know we should.
I think the positive is like everything goes through cycles. And one of the coolest things I found is like, I find a really cool young act that I'm like such a fan of their work. And I hit them up and they're like, oh dude, I listened to you in high school. I love you. Like, let's jam on something. So it's like, even if their fans and followers don't know what I do, the person they likes me. And then we can get together and we can make something, and I can take my ideas and my experiencing and they can take theirs, and we can combine it to create such fascinating and exciting things. And partly that's what I did on this album. Like, say the song Halifax is like, me and Ramzoid started that idea together,
right?
Just on the MS-20, and he was singing. And I actually took that to Tech Genesis, this young producer from Sydney or Wollongong, and he was doing all this wavetabling stuff and all this drum work and all this, using all this freeware that I didn't even have. And I was like, bro, this is crazy. It's like I wondered how he got that sound, and it's because he's not buying any plugins. It's because he's like hacking the matrix of like the stock and just so working out what's free, and it sounds like kind of plastic and interesting at times, but it's like that's the style. And we got so much out of each other from that. I worked with Filler as well on that song, I love his like hyper pop sort of style that we got in this one. So yeah, to me, like that is the future of music, is just diving in with people who are from a different lane or a different era, who we're all fans of each other, and we just get in and like do something that we couldn't have done independently.
Dude, yes, it's the culture. Like at the end of the day, I know that's sort of a cliche to talk about, but that's really, the culture is what never loses value. You know what I mean? Like that's, I tell this to younger artists too, if anyone ever asks, is like, that's kind of, to me, the way you guarantee that you will feel fulfilled in what you're doing is like, just keep reinvesting in the culture, keep participating in the culture. And like you said, the rest of it, if you're doing that daily, like actively, the rest of it will come of it. You gotta put something in to get something out of it.
I look at like even someone like Skrillex, as much as he's such a beast on his own, he was doing that with Porter and Zed and then myself. Like it was sort of like a train of like, he was excited by some young guys who were doing something as well. And then we all got together and put our heads together and made some like stuff that like, a lot of that was defining sort of the sound of those eras in the space.
I mean, that's maybe there's a question for a different episode, but that's a whole nother thing too, of like being known for a sound or a track that kind of defines an era, and then trying to evolve past that. And, years later, you're still here, still making music. That's an interesting one to negotiate too.
I think that was one of the coolest things I loved about Sonny is it didn't matter how big an act was. If he heard something exciting in it, he was down to work. He was down to hang. He was down to like put them on. And I think that has been one of the most important things to me to see as someone who sort of chaperoned and helped me come up in the industry, of how much he would put on the young people doing something interesting and shout them out and give every opportunity for them to have a career and spread into the community as well.
Yeah, man. Amen. And that's, I think, why you can tell his music is still so exciting and vibrant now, because you can tell he's still trying to find that new energy, you know?
Yeah. Oh, God. And I think he's nailed, like, where he's at right now is so cool and so exciting. And he did it by going away and just rethinking everything. And I'm so stoked that he did that and where it's all coming out now.
It's the most inspirational choice he could have possibly done, is just completely disappearing for years.
And the scariest. It's fucking scary to stop in this industry, because look at COVID. A lot of us stopped, and then a bunch of us aren't coming back right.
Dude,
you know, like,
and
it is fucking scary.
And to stop at his level with like the crazy money flying around and all these people relying on you and that, it's fucking terrifying, man. Yeah. It's
and also like, the further up you get, I mean, even on my level, I realize this: when you stop, you're still paying a lot. Like, it's not like you stop and you're like, oh, I'm not making money right now. It's like, no, I'm losing like 6 figures like a year right now if I stop.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this has been great. I love you, man. I love talking to you. Let me end this by asking you just a shitty interview question, just a junk food question, just for fun, and just because I've met him and he's an interesting guy. Tell me a story about working with Killer Mike on the new album.
Oh, sick, dude! Mike is the best. I'd actually followed Mike for years. Probably more so for the way he would talk on like political matters and social matters. I always loved his perspective. It was just so rich and deep and on the ground level and well thought out and articulate. I suppose that's why he's such a great rapper, because he has the abilities of that. It was super cool, man. I was actually doing a show with R.L. Grime in Atlanta, and then we hit up Mike and his team, and he was there, and he was like, dude, I got Stankonia, the Outcast studio, booked at 12, like, roll through, let's do something. And went in, tracked. I showed him a bunch of songs. Mr. Regular, he was like, yeah, this one, let's go, let's hit it. And then, just tracked him. He freestyled a whole bunch of stuff, and we got that, the really cool, like, halftime, like, swaggy sort of flow, and then the double time flow, and then that little outro bit that he did there. It was amazing, dude.
I love when the double time flow part comes in that song, because that to me is, again, that like tension and release, and also surprise moment. Because, you know, the halftime flow, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then I was like, well, now I kind of know what this song is going to be. And then he dropped into the double time thing, and it totally switches it up. There's a fun moment in that too, man. Yeah.
I think it was such a good bridge, because originally we didn't have the halftime flow, but I thought that was such a great bridge from Oliver into Mike. And it fitted the laziness of the beat.
Right.
And then when he goes double time, it's like, all right, Mike is here, he's flexing.
So wait, how did you meet him in the first place?
I did a remix for Run the Jewels, and then everyone got talking around that. And then Mike was like, yeah, I'd love to do a verse at some point. And then I was in town, and it all just kicked off.
He's another one, like you said, the political thing. He's very good. Run the Jewels have done this obviously all the time, but making like partying with a message, partying for a purpose, that kind of, like, still making party music that is actually about something. It's kind of, I feel like that used to happen a lot more, and maybe they're carrying the torch for it. But you too, to a certain extent, I feel like you've gotten better at that, or you're doing it more these days. Like, there's some tunes, I know you've talked about it, like the one with what's her name, Evan Gia.
Yeah, mess me up.
Yeah. I should just ask you, like, is that intentional? Do you think about, like, do I want this song to say something, or is it just kind of like, if that's what the song is, that's what it is?
I think there's a lot I want to say, and I had to work, like, I had to resolve myself before I could try and resolve the world. And I think that's one of the things you got to look to yourself, be critical of yourself, and sort yourself out before you can even speak to, like, try and tackle that stuff. Because otherwise you're sort of preaching down the wrong trail, I think.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it is like, don't be obnoxiously annoying about it, because no one wants to hear that.
Nah.
Like messing me up is just a metaphorical experience where we tapped into the things you feel in a relationship and then comparing that relationship to the planet and to Earth and to nature. And like, oh, wow, there's so many parallels here. Like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up that I do that and like don't really think about it, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, I think it's a systematic problem for the most part. If you ask me, how do you solve the environment problem in the world? I would literally say, raise the minimum wage so that people are happier and they can get by and they can bother to care about something bigger. And I do think it is the people that have to demand the change, because these corporations are very few, but making so much money from doing whatever they want. And they're not going to do anything about it unless we demand they do something about it. So it's not like, oh, you know, that high school sort of attitude where it's like, why do I have to use a keep cup when I get my coffee when blah, 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 I just use the plastic and it's way easier. And now I have to carry this keep. It's like, no, don't be like high school about it. Like, you know, it's the right thing to do. Let's do the right thing. Let's push for the change. And then if everyone is pushing, it starts to have a bigger sweep. So us making songs like that, it's like, hey, we're not just going to like demand like all this stuff and like be really annoying with it. And like, just kind of like, oh, it's like a kind of fun if I'm hearing this depressing. It's like, make it something relatable, make it something metaphorical, make it something deeper. So when someone's connected to the song, why am I so connected to this? They go and look into it and they're like, oh shit, it's actually about this and this and this. And I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I love that, man, because that's, you know, what you said, also like making a metaphor about relationships. That's what it all is, man. At the end of the day, it's us taking care of each other, like the core of it. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm right there with you about the economic inequality part too. It's I don't know, capitalism, man. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's not looking real good right now.
Oh boy, it's not.
But I will say, having these conversations with you, man, makes me real happy. It's great to catch up. Is there anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything else you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
All I'd say, man, is I would love to everyone to just go and listen to this album. Like really download it, turn your phone on airplane mode, shove it in the car, just go for a drive, listen on your headphones on your run, just zone out and dive into it. I think it's the greatest body of work I've ever done for sure. And maybe I'll ever do, as mentioned, because I don't know if I'll have the time to actually put in like I did with this one. So yeah, go have a moment with it.
Well, I love it, man. I'll add on to that, having listened to it a few times now. Listen to it like an album, like front to back. Don't shuffle it in a playlist, because I do think there's a very good arc to the whole thing. Like I think it has a clear beginning, middle, and end. You know what I mean? It
is the score to a film, so I made sure that there was an arc there.
Oh yeah, is there like, what's the deal with the film? Should people be looking out for that, or is that going to be a whole separate thing?
Still a while away, and I think we sort of flipped the script a little, as in, excuse the pun, but we're focusing more on the show that involves the visuals before we bother to finish the film, because I think the show for me is like quintessential to what I do. So I'm building it. I don't think anyone in the world has done this yet, what I'm building, but yeah, there's a lot of problems that I'm working out, mainly like infrastructural problems where it's not keeping up with the tech, and then working out how to actually tour this thing.
Oh, man. Well, that's exciting, dude. I remember talking to you about building the last crazy tour you did, and that sounded like fun. So this is probably some fun as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
Hell yeah. Well, man, I hope to see you somewhere out there, man, whether it's in LA or on the road or somewhere. But it's great to see you, man. Great to talk to you.
You too, man. Awesome. Always awesome.
Well, have a great rest of your day, dude. Hope to run into you soon. And love you, buddy. Take care.
Thanks, dude. You too, Willy.
All right, man. Peace.